How many of you have been to Albertville, Alabama? Could I see those hands? I see Eve has been there. I know Diane has been. It was always a treat to go to Albertville, Alabama, believe it or not, because we went to Aunt Al's house. The only kind of party that Aunt Al ever threw was a prodigal party, a feast to beat all feasts. Prodigal means wildly extravagant, excessive. And those words fit what happened to our family at Aunt Al's house. Aunt Al was Diane's mother's sister. She was the quintessential Southern host. And you know, we arrived at precisely the right time, lunchtime. All told, I remember counting 19 of us there. Cousins, kids, aunts, and I guess you're from some places it's aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandfathers, in-laws, and the like. And Al, she had been up since before breakfast. In fact, she had done some work the night before, getting ready for the feast. It was remarkable. It was 2-3 days after Christmas, so there were a few leftovers from Christmas dinner, but also a tremendous amount of freshly cooked food, and Al coming around the table, waiting on us hand and foot, saying, "Oh, no, here, have some more." And you know, I suppose it was done at least somewhat out of a sense of duty. Those things always are, I suppose, but I think she also wanted to honor her late sister's family as well. What a waste. What a waste, or was it? Is it a holy waste to throw a prodigal party for people you love? Have you ever noticed in the Bible how often biblical characters party? It seems at every turn there's some kind of a party. And Jesus, as you recall, was heavily criticized because he partied so much with sinners and the like. And today, in the Gospel of John, we begin with a party, a prodigal party, an extravagant party, an over-the-top party. And in looking at it, I think we can learn something about ourselves and about our God. So let's see what's going on at this party. Well, first, some people believe you don't need to have a reason to have a party, but I think it's probably a good idea to have a reason. It's a celebration. We learn early it's about Lazarus. He's back alive. Just prior in the previous chapter, Jesus has raised Lazarus. And you talk about a party, this is a festive one. If you've ever seen one, it's a welcome back Lazarus party. It's a new life party for Lazarus. There's plenty of reason here to party. It's extravagant from the word go. For the brother that was dead is now alive. Friends, family, neighbors, Jesus, all have arrived. The house is full of excitement and activity. But what about some of the main players there? Let's take a closer look at them. There's Mary. She performs a prodigal act, doesn't she? Wildly excessive, over the top. She lets her hair down, literally and figuratively, and takes out expensive perfume, puts it on Jesus' feet, then wipes his feet with her hair. Most likely, that perfume represented a year's worth of labor for a laborer. What a waste, a holy waste, an extravagant gift, reflecting the extravagant gift that Jesus had given to her, the life of her brother. You see, unlike the rest of the disciples, Mary gets it. She understands who Jesus is, what he's about. In this gospel, the 12 disciples are nearly invisible. Jesus' disciples are those who, like Mary, love Jesus and Jesus loves. They are persons who live out that love. She's a witness not merely by what she says, but by what she does. Imagine that. You and I can talk a better game than we live, right? Right? Mother Teresa used to say she helped the poor because she saw Christ in them. She was extravagant with the poor precisely because she was committed to Christ and saw Christ in those hungry, sickness-stricken faces. Extravagant? You bet. Appropriate? Absolutely. What do you see? What do you see? Who do you see? Perhaps this kind of prodigal gift is difficult to understand. Let me try to put it in perspective. We all remember the horrible Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting on December 14th, 2012. On that day, Victoria Soto, a first grade teacher, died while protecting her students from the shooter, Adam Lanza. When the shooting began, Victoria ushered her students into the closet, and when the shooter burst into her room, she claimed that they were in the gym. Lanza shot and killed her. Suppose with me, suppose that you are the parents of one of those first graders. What can you do to express your gratitude to Victoria Soto? For her sacrifice so that your first grader might live. Your life savings? A big house? What? Would anything that you can imagine be too extravagant in response to that awesome gift? For someone to save your child and in the process give her own life? I wonder, given those same set of circumstances, would I have done what Victoria Soto did? Would you have done that? Easy to talk, isn't it? More challenging to live. In 2015, the Victoria Soto Elementary School was opened in her memory. So that's where Mary is at this point when she takes that costly perfume made from the stem and leaves of an herb grown in India, kept in alabaster boxes because it was airtight, preserved the fragrance. She pours it on Jesus' feet. And while the text says, Jesus said she was keeping that for my burial, perhaps originally she had it for the burial of her brother that she didn't need anymore. And what does Mary do? She does the one act that Jesus will soon command his disciples to do. Minister to and humbly care for each other. Wash each other's feet. Have you ever done that? I've only done that once. And it isn't easy. It isn't easy to wash someone's feet. It's not easy to allow someone to wash my feet. She knows that it's near the end for Jesus. You know why? Because according to the verses immediately following the raising of Lazarus, many of the religious leaders believe in Jesus, and it's a threat to the powers that be. Freedom tends to be a threat to the powers that be. Some of these who believe tell the Pharisees, and they're frightened that the Romans will come and destroy both their holy place and their nation. So from that day on, they plan to put Jesus to death. And verse 54 says, therefore, Jesus no longer walked openly among the religious leaders. Mary knew Jesus has given her brother life, and now his is under threat. Giving life leads to death. How strange is that? What's a person to do in such a situation when only the best will do? No ordinary gift is appropriate here. How can you say thank you? How can you say goodbye to someone like Jesus? Would you say, here, Jesus, I have a Hallmark card for you. It reads, the Community Soup Kitchen has received a substantial donation in your honor from Mary of Bethany. Not enough, is it? Only a prodigal gift, a wildly extravagant gift will do. And do it while he's alive. Don't wait until it's too late. How many people have lost loved ones and lived the rest of their lives with regret because they waited too late to make amends, to express their love? Mary didn't make that mistake. Let's keep this in perspective. It's just her life savings. It is his life. Mary's overflowing with gratitude. After Jesus is gone, she'll still have a basket full of gratitude to spare and to share with the poor because of what Jesus has done for her. Her actions dramatize things that mere words cannot express. You and I have a lot to be thankful for. There were multiple thousands yesterday who walked the streets seeking to protect the freedoms that you and I have taken for granted for far too long. Gratitude there. Oh, by the way, gratitude ought to show up in the offering plate. I did talk with those receiving the offering, and I said, if you don't get enough, we'll go back through it again and see if we can get enough. So there's Mary, but then there's Judas, who knows the cost of everything but the value of nothing. Judas doesn't care about the poor. He cares about his pocketbook. His complaints ring pretty hollow. There's no record at all that he cares about the poor. He's wasteful, he steals, he's prodigal in his thieving. He wastes an opportunity at discipleship. Yes, he is prodigal here, but from a negative standpoint. But strangely enough, as sorry as he may be, this Jesus is the one who last week told us the story of God's care and unending search for the lost sheep. And if there ever was a lost sheep, it's Lazarus. Judas fits that description, and some of us in this room may fit that same description. Truth be told, both Mary and Judas live in us, don't they? Years ago, when I was a senior minister at my first church in Fayetteville, Arkansas, it was just after Christmas, the phone rang. You never like to get this call. It was from the funeral home. A 20-something young man, a factory worker with a young wife and a young son, had dropped dead at Christmas dinner. Among many other things, the family didn't have a minister. Would I do a graveside service? I agreed. The service was on the 27th, 28th of December, on a cold, blustery, sunny winter afternoon. When I arrived at the graveside, I was shocked. It was just a graveside service. No one was there except the widow, a young woman who herself was in her 20s, their young son, one of his friends, and the funeral director. Wow. No one else showed up. After the brief graveside service, the funeral director came over to me, pressed a $20 bill in my hand, and said, "The widow, the wife, wants you to have this $20. It just didn't feel right. Here was a woman, obviously, of limited financial means. I walked over to her and said, I just can't accept this. Here, I want you to have it. And I walked away and my chest was puffed out. I felt justified, quite self-righteous about the whole thing. But as I've reflected over the years, I've come to wonder, did I dishonor her by not accepting that gift? That gift of gratitude for being the one who conducted her husband's funeral. Jesus knows how important it is for Mary to give this gift. This gift is an act of devotion and love. And so he accepts it. What wild gift have you received that calls for a tangible response of deep gratitude? What have you received from your family, your church, your community, your world? Jesus knew how important it was to give, but also to be open to receive. How about you?